Okay, it's 6:34, and I'd like to call the Resource Conservation Commission November 8th, 2021 meeting to order. Diane, would you like to be timekeeper for today?
Sure.
Thank you. Next item on our agenda is, are there any public appearances for non-agenda items? Scott, I guess there's no one in the chambers. Okay, thank you. Item 3 on the agenda is approval of the draft minutes from October 11th, 2021. I'd like to make a motion that we approve these minutes.
I'll second.
Okay, up for discussion. Phil, I just do have one change, editorial change. Item 4C, third sentence, chair is misspelled, so it should be CHAIR. I thought I had corrected that, but.
Oh, no. I definitely meant to write Chari.
Oh.
Actually, didn't Claudia take these minutes?
Oh, well,
yeah, I think,
busted.
Nice try, Phil.
Yeah. You're off on this one. Any other discussion on the meeting minutes? If not, I'd like to take a vote to approve or disapprove the meeting minutes. All in favor?
Aye.
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 All opposed? Okay, ayes have it. Next on the agenda is the resolution R-204-21 approving a joint funding agreement with the U.S. Geological Survey, USGS, for the Swan Creek Monitoring Station. Bill, can you, I guess we need to pull that up.
I move approval. Are we going to do a motion to start or?
Yeah.
I move approval.
I second.
Okay, for discussion. I can just give you a little, well, some additional background into this. So a little bit less cost to the city this year because of the monitoring station's already been established, so we don't have to pay for the establishing the station. So the city will be kicking in $13,000. USGS will be kicking in $5,000 as part of their match, and the town of Dunn will continue to contribute $2,000 to the monitoring station, which includes, 24-hour data and also sampling for various water quality parameters. And I might add that we are also based on conversations with Steve School of the Friends of Wabisa Wetlands and a Lake Wabisa Conservation Association, we're going to be collecting some additional orthophosphorus samples. And so Lake Wabisa Conservation Association will be kicking in $2,027.50 to pay for those additional samples. So they've already written a check to the USGS to pay for that. So that was very generous on their part to do that. Hopefully this new data will give us a better understanding of the orthophosphate loading in the lake from Swan Creek. Any other discussion?
Just wanted to say that I'm just really happy that this is continuing to go forward every time this monitoring station comes up.
Yeah.
Brings a smile to my face, and really happy. It's exciting that we're doing some additional testing and that looks like we have the partnerships in place that we can do some additional things as it comes up, and we have support from other organizations. So thanks for your work on that front, Ron, and being a liaison between those organizations, and really happy to see this.
yeah, it's exciting. So hopefully sometimes in the springtime, I know it's not on the agenda, but we do need to get an update from Todd from USGS on that. So let him give an overview of, maybe after a year, maybe we could get a 6-month overview of how the monitoring station performed.
Good.
Very good.
Okay, any other discussion? Okay. All those in favor of approving the resolution R-204-21, say aye.
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 Opposed? Not opposed? Okay. Item 3B on the agenda is draft 2022 calendar of events. So I think that's Bill. Can you bring that up?
I will pull that up.
Oh, Phil, sorry. Bill, thank you for pulling together this package for this meeting.
Here we are. Yeah, so I didn't make any, I'm not sure if I made any changes really to the 2021 calendar of events. I changed the years obviously and struck a few items that for sure were not relevant. Kind of was pulling this agenda packet together last minute. So this is sort of a starting point for next year, is just what do we do this year as an RCC?
Yeah.
And then the process that we went through last year was the overview of this 2021 calendar of event in November. Between the November and January meetings, then Claudia and I and the chair at the time, Nate, kind of updated this based on the discussion we had in November. And then in January, an additional draft, a second draft was presented to the RCC. I think there were a couple more changes made after that, and we had the final calendar done by February. So either January or February, we would overview the final schedule for 2022, but we can certainly have a discussion about things we'd like to continue, update, change, add for next year right now.
Okay. Well, one thing I've been thinking about is, as I've been reviewing this calendar for the last couple of years, is that, you know, I think we need to start looking at things a little bit differently. I know a lot of the things are big ongoing from year to year. We keep doing that. We do the same things, which is good because we have to do those things. But to me, I think we should start looking for the city and as a commission, maybe something in the way of maybe focusing on 2022 is a smart city for city of Fitchburg. Making something, you know, where we can bring people together, the technology that's in the area, and policy, city policy together, so we can make this a better place to live. You know, having a sustainability plan for what we're doing in the city, you know, looking at other ways to make the environment better, like, you know, signing on and working with the South Central Invasive Partnership in terms of invasive species approach. You know, developing a dark sky ordinance so that, you know, we are different than a lot of the other cities around here, that we want our people to, our folks in our community, to see the night sky, to see the Milky Way, to appreciate the dark sky. And at the same time, a dark sky actually helps save the city money by terms of, you know, changing lighting routines and bulbs and things like that. And so I just think, you know, maybe a focus on a smart city. You know, we have our large solar field complex, the largest in Dane County. We've got a lot going for us, thanks to all the work that's been done by the city so far. But I think we still need to continue down that route and developing, you know, taking advantage of the technology in the area and the people and knowledge that we have here. I mean, I think really be nice for the city of Fitchburg to really stand out, be one of the standout cities in Dane County. And I think we can do that. You know, that's my thoughts on, you know, thinking about for 2022.
Ron, just some background. I can't remember if you were here last year when we did the calendar, but in addition to the first part, which provides the things that we would like to focus on, the rest of it by month is used to sort of keep us on track so we don't miss things that need to be done. Or for example, like if we have a spring waterway cleanup, then we need to start planning for that a couple months in advance. And then when we do the announcements, and it's also intended to help the chair put the agenda together. So I agree with what you're saying and your thoughts, but the detail behind this, and it obviously needs to be refreshed for 2022, but that's the purpose of the detail. As far as marketing the city as a smart city, I think that if we're going to, I think that's pretty ambitious for RCC, given what outreach we have or our outreach limitations, but I think it would be great to involve CETA in that.
Mm-hmm. Well, we don't have to make it a huge, big program. I think we can take little steps at a time to work in that direction. And maybe we can identify things, the RCC's focus for 2022. I definitely think, we need to get it a sustainability plan in place. Gabrielle is making, put in an amendment for funding for that. So I think it's critical that we have that in place. I think there's some other things that we could be doing as well. Some of the things I've already covered, but are there other ideas out there? And I agree with you, Diane. I know this is kind of a roadmap for us for the year, and we have to have these things in here too, but I want to make sure that we are looking outside our normal pattern and thinking of other things that we can do.
I think a lot of the focus items can come from our last meeting. I think we contributed a lot of things that people want to work on, and maybe we don't want to work on them all. One thing that I would like to hit harder that we've relaxed on, and I think we're paying the price, is the idling reduction policy. The city has a policy for employees that apparently many employees don't know about, and our outreach on idling reduction. That's one of the easiest things we can do to reduce greenhouse gases. So I'd like to add that to the things we talked about at the last meeting.
Okay. So where is that policy? I don't think I've seen it.
Well, you're not alone in that. It's supposed to be, if I remember correctly, it's in the employee handbook, but I'm not positive. I mean, we worked really hard several years ago to get this in place, and to put the signs up around the city. And unfortunately, I didn't see any signs at our event on Saturday. And the person I know that went to Clean Sweep didn't see any signs there. So I don't know where the policy is for sure. Maybe Phil can direct us, or maybe, I don't know, Bill
Yeah,
knows.
I could look up where the policy lives on the website. It is searchable on the City of Fitchburg website. You're correct, it is in the employee handbook.
Okay.
There were, for what it's worth, Dakota did put up the 2 signs that we have for idling. The difficulty with having just 2 signs is we've got a lot of drivers coming in different entrances and sitting in different places, and trying to find the most strategic places to put those is a little bit of a challenge. So they were both placed near where cars would be stopping to unload their paper and unload their electronics. But yeah, they're not huge signs.
There weren't any by the paper shredding.
There was one right around the second bend that cars went through. I did move it about halfway through, closer to where Kim was greeting cars, to see if that would make a difference.
Thank you.
There is a section on the under Green Fitchburg on the website called Idling Reduction Campaign that has a lot of the information on it. I'm sure if you search, hopefully if you search on the city website that phrase, it should pop up, and it has links to different items from that effort.
The problem that I have seen, and that's been brought to my attention, is that city employees aren't aware of it, and in fact are advocating leaving their cars idling longer because it's easier on the car, or with their truck or whatever they're driving. I don't know where they're getting that kind of information, but with the employee turnover at the city, something needs to be done to remind employees that this is the city policy, because it seems to have gotten lost in the shuffle.
Are there stickers inside the car, like on a dashboard, that says, reduce idling, keep idling to a minimum?
I thought that we put stickers in, but vehicles have changed. I know that we had some stickers donated to us by, I can't remember the organization, but it's a national organization. They sent us several stickers at no charge. They're not stickers, they're clings. And I still have a couple in my file, but I do think that's a good idea, Ron, that we need to get those in every city vehicle.
Yeah.
Anyway, I'd like to put that on the agenda to work on in 2022.
Okay.
just as a general note too, I think this body serves really well as a discussion vehicle for these types of ideas and bringing them to the forefront and having these discussions that then can be shared with the departments or with the council and can lead to things like budget amendments or hopefully next year potentially a sustainability plan framework. So I love the idea that this body is bringing up ideas like reintroducing the idling reduction, dark sky ordinance, things of that nature. I think we should continue because we always have discussions, but council meetings, we don't typically have time for those types of things. So it's really good to have those discussions here, and then I can bring it back to the council and try to make it into a policy directive.
Yeah, that's good.
Yeah, I think, we've always had, and tried to, even this list of bulleted items, which I think is 8. Our goal each year is to make that like 3 to 5, and we always just get to 7 or 8 because of the diversity of things that we try to, we have our different passions and interests, and we want to support all of those, but at the same time, I somewhat feel like the change I'd like to make is to have 3 primary ones, that we continue to check in on, that we can kind of keep, in our heads and, all be kind of focusing on together, and then kind of have, maybe some of these are like sub goals to each year, like the writing, the articles, that's still something we want to do. But, really kind of focus in on 3 goals that we really think can improve sustainability in Fitchburg. I think we're all on the same page with wanting the sustainability plan to get approved to move forward with that process. So I think that's one. And then I think it would be nice to have a little bit consensus as a group as to maybe a couple other ones that we think would be primary targets for us to really focus in on. And then, we'll hit on all these other things, but I think it would be really nice to just be, super dialed into a few because to be honest, I've worked on these as much as anybody in the last 10 years. I have to go back to the list to remember what our 3 are, like what are your primary goals with RCC? There's too many of them to list, so I can't really tell you what they are. I could probably stab and hit a lot of these, but I think it would be nice for our commissioners just to really be focused in.
Mm-hmm. I would agree with you, Chris. I think we should narrow this list down and so we can, like you said, focus on some priority objectives. So just having this long 8 bullets here or 10 bullets here just seems to me, that's what kind of threw me off at first. Like educate the community on the O'Brien Solarville project. We've kind of done that. I don't think that should be it's not really a focus of what we should be doing. So, and we continue to write the articles for the Fitchburg Star. That's just to me like a given that we will be doing every year. But, again, like, pushing and developing, putting in place a sustainability plan. If there's a way that we can't get funding for it, is there another way that we can look for funds, Gabriella, that would, someone would write a grant or, get grant money to do it?
I mean, I'd maybe throw that to Phil. I mean, I think it's really just the staff capacity to be able to write grants. I don't know if it's typical for any sort of other volunteers to help with that effort, Phil, but I guess that's always a possibility, but it sounds like maybe that's outside the scope of a committee role.
Yeah, that I'm not sure about. Yeah, the one grant I'm most familiar with that does fund planning is the one that we received a couple of years ago, that Office of Energy Innovation grant. I'm not aware of any others that are targeted towards more broadly sustainability planning. It's something I've been keeping an eye on, and nothing's popped up yet. But
I think switching gears a little bit. I mean, I think maybe would it be appropriate to have a RCC yearly projects, like things that we do every year, such as the Fitchburg Star articles and recycling events, and then we have a select list of things that we'd like to explore in 2022, new items that we'd like to explore. because obviously, like you said, there's some items in this focus that we do every year, no matter what. It's kind of a given. But maybe having a separate section that just highlights potential new initiatives might be valuable.
Yeah, I was kind of thinking the same thing, Gabrielle, that, we have some projects that are kind of ongoing. And then if we had a priority list of some other things that were more short term, or things that we know that we can accomplish and have an end in sight, then we can kind of add, the next priority to that list or something like that. But I agree. I think there's some things that we do every year, and then there are some programs that are ongoing.
Mhm.
Another thing I've noticed on these 8 bullets, several of them have to do with community outreach. So those are like subcategories of our community outreach, and that would shorten the list considerably.
Yeah. So seems to be a consensus here, kind of to reduce our focus to like 3 or 4 key items? And if so, what?
I think we're all saying the same thing. I think it's, top priorities for 2022 or new initiatives,
Mhm.
our focus goals. We have, kind of our ongoing, initiatives or actions or outreach.
Mhm.
However we want to characterize it, we could put those, kind of under that and mention that we're still hitting some of these things. But yeah, I think, and like I said, I think we're all on the same page with the sustainability plan being one that we want to dial into, and one that we're focused on with our committee of the whole presentation. But maybe we can have a little bit of discussion as to what we think those other 2 might be, and then just kind of be, refining that, or, just having discussion about that right now, I guess.
Yeah. I mean, I like what you said, Chris, in terms of new initiatives for 2022, but then, RCC's focus for 2022. I think it sounds better. And I mean, I'd like, outside the sustainability plan, I'd like to really push the working with the South Central invasive folks to make people more aware of the impact of invasive species in our community and what they can do to reduce it. I think we mentioned when they gave us a presentation, I think back in October or September, that they would hold a field trip for us, sometimes like in April and May, to talk about invasive species, showing our partners, or not our partners, but folks in the community, take them to a park or something like that, and talk more about invasive species and how they're harmful for the environment, and what they can do to reduce the presence of invasive species. So
I'm just looking at the minutes from the last meeting, and some of the new items that came out in addition to invasive species. You already mentioned this, Ron, the dark sky ordinance. Josh suggested equitable tree plantings, and I think that would be an excellent, that goes hand in hand with the healthy neighborhoods. And Phil, maybe that's, maybe we're stepping on a few other committees' toes if we focus on that, but I think it's a great thing that somebody should start working on.
I would say that don't worry about stepping on toe. I personally think that the more collaboration between committees, the better. So I think we should see it as a collaboration. And I don't think other committees are going to get offended if we at least tree advisory, for sure. Tree advisory won't get offended.
I think they probably welcome the additional voice.
So if we look at that from the minutes, I had mentioned the invasive species, dark sky. Diane, you mentioned the solar farm tour, BYOB event. What was that again?
Bring your own bag. That's a community outreach
bag.
thing that doesn't need to be, that's just one of the things that we organize. That's not something new.
Okay. And then Josh had equitable tree plantings. I mean, if we look at and then Chris had the multifamily recycling event. I mean, I think that's important too. I mean, it's
It's
something
a
we
little
haven't
tougher
done
to
in the
do
past, have
when we're
we?
coming out of the pandemic. So
What's
I-
that?
it's kind of tough to do coming out of the pandemic and
Yeah.
not sure exactly where that's going to go. Things are looking good, and you know, it's not that we won't work on it, but I don't know that it should be one of our top 3 focus areas. So it's, you know, and then Diane mentioned idling earlier. So really, I'm kind of looking at sustainability plan, and then there's like 5 other ones that we've mentioned. You know, invasive species, focusing on that, equitable tree plantings, dark skies ordinance. You know, reinvigorating the idling reduction policies, and then multifamily recycling. And I will knock multifamily recycling off of that list. So
If the funding doesn't get through for the sustainability plan, where does that leave us if we put that as our focus for 2022? And we touched on this a little bit, Phil, in the meeting that you conducted. What can we do without funding? I mean, are we a ship without a motor?
No, I think that. So I still I think I'm pretty well caught up from my couple weeks off. So my goal in the next week, 2 weeks is to really start working on the annual energy report, because that's something that I'm trying to bring in-house, and need to start working on that before we get too far into December. But 2 is the sustainability plan, and I want to meet with a couple people in the city that have done a few of the plans that we've put together. I'd also like to meet with a couple of my peers with other cities that do have sustainability plans and talk to them about what their process was like. I do think if we don't get this funding for the plan, it likely either limits our scope or just extends the timeline. But I don't think it precludes us from creating a sustainability plan. I think it will just, you know, whatever funding we do or don't have goes into my planning and kind of our expectations for what the process is going to look like. So if we don't have funding, we're not bringing in external consultants, and so that means more staff-led focus groups and things like that.
I'll also jump in and say that we'll know tomorrow whether or not it passes, but if it does not pass, there is an opportunity to fund it next year through the tax increment district closure. There's going to be a large sum, around $3 million windfall from the tax increment district closure. That's perfect for one-time expenses like a sustainability plan. So either if it doesn't get funded tomorrow, I'm certainly going to bring it forward as a part of the TID closure. And even if it does get funded tomorrow, that 25,000, I would likely still bring it as part of the TID closure in the hope that we could get it more fully funded and have a more full funding for the
More robust plan, yeah.
Yeah. So that's my plan in terms of funding. I think that there's a good chance that we'll get funding next year no matter what.
Awesome. Yeah, and thanks, Gabriella. That I appreciate that. I know that there have been efforts in the past to fund a sustainability plan. They have not succeeded. But I don't think that means that everything hinges on this one vote tomorrow. It would be great to get that funding. If it doesn't happen, we try again. You know, this is a big part of my goals for the next year or two. So I'm going to keep pushing for this, whether, you know, we have the funding to bring in a consultant or not, or when that funding comes in. If we've started the process and 6 or 8 months in, we can bring somebody in to kind of help us sort of recalibrate, that's great too.
I also think in principle, the TID funding is a good appropriate use of that money, because the sustainability plan in my mind is an essential part of looking at the development of the city in the future and the economic development of the city and the physical development of the city. I think a sustainability plan is part of that. And the tax increment district money is collected for economic development. So I think philosophically, it's also a good use of that money. But yeah, there's opportunities.
Well, if we take these ideas and separate out the community outreach sort of items, like invasive species, that bringing that group in, that's a community outreach event. I think sustainability plan should be number one. then I would suggest that we work on the dark sky ordinance and equitable tree plantings, and not necessarily in that order. But I would suggest that those three be our focus, and then we have community outreach, which would be a fourth category, and the ideas that we have for community outreach. And I would include the school recycling is, in my opinion, community outreach, invasive species, the BYOB event, the Build a Bat House event. We can just kind of talk about which ones we want to focus on of the community outreach items.
Diane, would you add the idling to the community outreach as well?
Well, that's a good question, because some of it has to do with within the city staff. And I didn't mean to exclude that, because I think that if the city staff is not going to lead by example, it's difficult to get them, the residents, you know, when the residents see city trucks idling for a half an hour, that just sends the wrong message. So I guess I don't necessarily consider that community outreach, but it's definitely an education component.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I was looking at the link that was put in the chat box, and it showed some of the local businesses that participate in that program. So I didn't know if you were thinking primarily from, you know, city staff perspective in terms of educating, or were you thinking of reaching out to additional businesses or just to the public?
I was thinking primarily of getting city staff back on board. And I was not thinking of going out, you know, we contacted several businesses at the time. And I wasn't thinking of putting our focus on doing that, especially since we don't know what's going on with COVID. But I have no problem writing an article about it for the Star. So.
Okay. Okay, thanks for clearing that up.
Yeah, you think of all the delivery trucks out there. I mean, those Amazon and UPS people, they just stop. Their trucks are still running and they're delivering their packages and getting back in. I don't think they turn them off, the vehicles off.
Actually, they've gotten a little bit better about that. And I don't know, especially with gas prices going up now, if they'll get back into that. But at least in my neighborhood, I see them shutting it off before they hop out of their vehicle.
Oh.
I was going to say that I've noticed the same. And I like the idea of clustering outreach. I think we could also approach that kind of just as like a communication topic more broadly. I think we could talk about, you know, the specific areas that we want to emphasize, but then I think a lot of it is like, are there forums that we're missing, or are there, you know, methods that we're not, you know, that would be targeted for maybe certain topics, right? Like, so how would we want to reach out to people on the idling one as opposed to, you know, in comparison to maybe some of the other topics? I think talking through what our, you know, communication strategy is on a lot of these outreach ones could be beneficial for a number of them, right? Identifying partners in the community that we could push 3 or 4 of them to in a consolidated way, I think would be another kind of way to look at that, so that we think about getting something like the Fitchburg Star articles into our rotation, right? You know, are we doing some type of literature with this group on a regular basis that emphasizes these points or something like that?
Yeah, Josh, I think those are good points. I think, you know, as we look at, you know, there's obviously we haven't been able to do a lot of events the last couple of years. We got one in this past summer. You know, we used to more routinely meet our community outreach subcommittee, which at this point I think is just Kim and myself and Sharon Hanrahan. And, you know, we get others to kind of fill in and help out. But, you know, we need to kind of rebuild that group, you know, in 2022 and get back to having routine meetings. But I think a good thing for the RCC to talk about at a early 2022 meeting before we start, you know, ramping up with, you know, getting back to doing more events is really kind of talking about the best ways to, you know, communication strategies, partners in the community. I think those are all, you know, really good ideas. You know, we have a good list as a base to start from, and a good email list, and we've had good attendance at our events. But I think that there's additional things that could be done to further extend our outreach, I guess, into the community.
I am curious too what this committee's thoughts are on like partnering with organizations that may even be outside of Fitchburg. I mean, I definitely understand the accessibility and the local nature of hosting events at things like City Hall. But if we could sponsor a bat house build with the Aldo Leopold Nature Center, and we go host it there, and we're using their community, they're going to advertise that on their series of events, we'll advertise it to our residents similar to what we would normally. Is that something that we would entertain, so that we're not necessarily relying on only our network and only our resources to kind of do an entire event? Or is it not necessarily ideal just because it takes away from that local nature?
Yeah, I mean, I think we're
just to interrupt, Ron, we're at our time limit.
Okay.
Sorry, Chris.
Yeah, no, I think we've, for our last Bat House event, we partnered with the DNR. Obviously, I don't think they emailed out to their email lists on it. And so it did have a little bit more of a local community flair, but we do reach out, for our larger events and tap into, other networks to kind of spread word around. So for instance, we'll do like a news or a press release, or we'll send email material to the Sierra Club, and they'll circulate around to their email lists. So we do look for those opportunities, and each event is different. So I think earlier this year we had the tree event, and I can't remember if there was, I don't remember who their network was, but I think they're mostly dependent on our network of people and outreach within the community. That's why they teamed up with us to help them put on the event. And so, it kind of depends on, what the event is. So I think, when we're in the initial planning stages, we should be talking about those types of things and just make that part of our system when we're talking about an event. Who are our potential partners with this event? What are kind of our overall marketing strategies? Do we want this to extend beyond Fitchburg? That type of thing. All of those things come with a lot of effort. And so sometimes it's nice to just have an event at the grocery store where it's a bring your own bag event and we don't have to market it too much. We do a few Facebook posts on it or whatnot, and then we just show up, and then we just depend on the people that are showing up at the grocery store. So that kind of comes into play as well, with the number of events that may be one of the factors, or we just want to go do an event at one particular specific apartment or multifamily complex. So it kind of depends, but I think that should be part of our system, is to ask those questions on the front end, especially when we're trying to do a larger event.
Okay, well, a lot of good ideas discussed here. So it sounds like if we want to revise those 8 bullets down to 4, we're looking at number 1 is the sustainability plan. The second would be the dark sky ordinance. 3 would be equitable tree planting. And 4 would be community outreach made of the various things that we just finished discussing. Does that sound right?
Yes.
Okay. Good.
Ron, somewhere in there, I really do want it to hit on the idling, which I don't think we'll
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. But you want to be that, well, that's like you said, that's kind of different than being a part of the community outreach. So
yeah,
it's more focused on city employees.
Yep.
Okay. All right. So I guess the next step would be to, I guess, as a chair, I would go through and just kind of maybe revise the calendar for next year and send it out for people to review, or I'm not sure what the next step would be on updating the calendar.
Yeah, I'll double check on how Claudia led that last year.
Okay.
I think it'll be emails between you and me and I'll see if they were sent out to the whole RCC or if it was just Nate and Claudia that modified everything based on this discussion.
Okay,
And we'll go from there.
Historically, Ron, the chair has put together a draft and then emailed the draft out to the commissioners and staff for other suggestions, and then presented the draft at the next RCC meeting.
okay. I guess I have to be careful how I do that because I don't want to get my hand slapped by sending it out to everyone and then create a quorum. So I have to do it one at a time.
No.
Well,
you
the big trick is just making sure that people are not replying all and it doesn't turn into a group conversation. So that's where things can get dicey.
Okay,
So if you're sharing this out with all the commissioners and everyone just responds to you to suggest edits, that's fine.
Yep.
okay.
Just be careful with that reply all.
So I think our goal would be to finalize this at the first meeting in January,
Sure. That's correct, right.
and then we're off to the races.
Well,
Yep.
yeah, then we can present it. I mean, I think that
Yep.
should be included in our community of the whole presentation.
Yep,
Absolutely.
yep, absolutely, yep. Okay, item 4C on the agenda, the draft 2021 annual RCC report. I think, Phil, you had pulled something together on that. What was screen?
Yeah, I've got it up here on the screen because we have just a couple notes and comments in here. It's going to be a little bit small, but I'll try to blow that up some. But this was in the packet that was sent out to all of you. So I can keep it up for a bit and then pull it down. We can just kind of chat with each other. But again, this is something that it looks like Claudia put a lot of work into before she took her leave for a couple months. So we've got a really good start on this and probably just need a few additional notes and clean up to have it ready.
Okay. So this would you're asking for us to provide input into this then?
Yeah, I think it's mostly just if anything looks incorrect or missing. This is the goal here is to have a list of everything that RCC directly was involved in. I think sometimes it can get a little bit uncertain. Do we add something if it's something that maybe RCC would be interested in and was kind of reported at a meeting but didn't necessarily have RCC engagement on? That's certainly something that we can figure out, but yeah, just kind of reviewing the events and making sure we didn't miss anything substantial.
Initially, this was put together like Phil said, the annual report was just things that RCC was involved with doing, but it has expanded. If you look at the solid waste, refuse and recycling initiatives, for example, RCC isn't involved in setting up the bins for the light string recycling. But we get a report on that. And on the hazardous waste, the clean sweep, actually, when Clean Sweep, the last time it was in Fitchburg, I think it was RCC's idea to have it here. But in this case, the most recent one, although we were notified of it, we weren't really involved in the decision to host it. So I can see why that maybe should be removed.
I think the line there would be something like the City Hall recycling. Recycling outreach is an ongoing effort by RCC, and so that's something that could conceivably still be seen as being under RCC's umbrella. But I agree that this clean sweep event would be a separate initiative from the previous one that RCC was maybe a bit more involved in. So I could see this clean sweep event maybe not being included, but certainly still having the holiday light recycling involved in this report are included. So these are areas that that are kind of areas that RCC is involved in and interested in, but something that was communicated to the RCC and certainly falls under this header of stormwater and groundwater initiatives. The stormwater vegetation management plan that Claudia put together is in that umbrella, but I would say probably wouldn't be included as an RCC activity for the year. So that's another one where not necessarily everything that fits within these categories is going to go into the report.
We could relabel that item and just say city solid waste, refuse and recycling initiatives, and then not only leave the hazardous waste collection under there, but also add the addition of the extra dumpster or whatever we did at the drop-off site.
Additional
Right.
cardboard containers, I think.
Yes, yep.
Oh, I was going to add a comment in here, but I probably shouldn't do that I'll add these comments into my meeting notes.
What do you think about that, Phil?
Relabeling that as city initiatives.
City solid waste, parentheses, refuse and recycling initiatives.
Kind of noodling over that in my brain. Bill, do you have any thoughts on that?
While Bill's thinking about it, we could also add the battery recycling that's included at the e-cycle. Because the city's paying for that.
Right.
So what do you think, Bill?
Yeah, I think, separating it out as, city events or initiatives, that's one way of doing it. Is the intent of the report here to reflect what RCC contributed to and had input on?
Sorry.
Yeah,
I think overall that's the high level goal is to reflect RCC. Sorry, I just went fuzzy. I'll fix that in a minute. To reflect RCC engagement and accomplishments. I think I would be hesitant to create a category that's called like city initiatives, only because that does feel like it's a little bit of a different beast than RCC initiatives. But yeah, it's not a strong feeling, I don't think.
Well then, okay, how about Plan C? Let's eliminate the clean sweep event, but I think we should include the battery recycling because that used to be a separate line item here when we had the collection bins in City Hall, and we're still doing it just differently. Does that work for everybody? Does anybody care?
It works for me. Yeah.
Okay.
Was it this year that we worked with Claudia regarding our stormwater detention facilities, how we were ranking them and grading them?
Yes.
And is that part? I think that should be part in here as well under the stormwater.
Yep, I'll look to add that in.
Okay. What's on page 2, Phil? Print that one out.
Here we go.
No, it would actually be under on the first page under stormwater.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. I think, Ron, were you just asking what's on the second page?
Yeah, what's on the second page? Yeah.
We also discussed pretty extensively the native vegetation management plan for stormwater facilities.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. So I had called that out as the plan writing itself was less of an RCC activity, but yeah, there was extensive conversation about it. So I can add in something reflecting RCC's input on that plan.
So those Fitchburg articles will be the ones that were presented, right?
The ones that we've actually,
Yeah.
This report gets finalized in January. So by that time we'll have the article that will hopefully be in this month's Star that you wrote, Ron, and the article that I'm writing for next month. So yeah.
Okay. And do we have, Diane, do you have a list of all those were presented this year?
Phil has been doing a nice job of keeping a list.
Okay. That's right, there was a spreadsheet or something you have, Phil?
Yeah, I have a spreadsheet. I know I added the most recent to September and October. It looks like everything else in here is from 2021, so I'll need to
Yeah.
update those. But yes, I've got the full list.
Okay.
Did I share that out after the August or September meeting?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Was that recycling drop-off video this year, Kim? Oh, it was? Good.
Yes.
Trying to remember. It was
I
winter
think-
time.
Oh, wait, yeah.
This
Or
says
was
November.
it-
That would have been.
I
If that's
think it was
November, that
last
was
year.
last year.
I think it was November.
But it would have been after well, yeah, I guess it was November.
Yeah. What about the painting of the street sweepers?
Hmm.
And the other thing under community outreach, we should at least include the tree diversity event that we had in.
Yep, and we do.
Yeah.
Oh, sure. We had that up above with events. So there was a specific section here for
Oh,
events.
okay, good.
So we've
That's
got
fine.
the tree diversity event there.
Good,
Yeah.
thanks.
Good. Looks like I'm going to add more detail. So we'll get that taken care of. Recycling day event. We don't have numbers yet. Hopefully in the next week or so, we'll get quantities, weights on things.
Okay. So any other discussion on the annual report?
Yeah, and certainly again, similar to the calendar for 2022, as I get another draft of this completed, I'll send that out. I'll work with Ron to get a draft of this done and sent out to commissioners. And then if you've got any additions, changes, you can email back me or Ron.
Okay.
To get more things added in there. One I'm going to want to look at is we've got 2 votes in here that are referenced, and I want to check and see if there are any other votes of consequence that should be reflected in this report. I would say that the involvement, I don't think I see it in here, but involvement in getting the Swan Creek monitoring station should be reflected in the annual report for sure.
Yeah, well, you had it on the first page.
We did? Okay, well, oh,
Yep.
yes.
Right
Yep.
there, yeah.
Fantastic. And I think it's just those 2 pages. Yep.
Okay.
So yeah, anything else on this, or I think we're.
It looks pretty good. Thank you, Phil.
Yeah.
All right.
Thank you,
Well,
Bill.
and actually also Claudia,
Thanks.
but she's not listening.
Yeah.
I'll find a way to let her know.
Did she have her baby?
She did.
Good.
Yeah, last
did?
week, I think.
Oh,
And everybody's doing well?
Yeah, last
Good.
I've heard, everybody's doing great.
Good.
okay. So we can move on to item 4D, which is brainstorm for 2022 annual event, which has me a little perplexed.
I think it should probably dial into one of our top 3 priorities, seeing as how we just had a tree event. And sustainability plan is more so being in the trenches, I guess, and talking about it at different meetings and community of the whole, and doing some legwork on the side to position Fitchburg to move forward by showing what value that has brought to other communities. I think the dark skies ordinance seems to make sense. Another candidate would be the one that we did a lot of planning for and we're about to launch in 2020, which would have been the food waste. We had a really great forum pulled together for that and put a ton of effort into it. And it was going to be on food waste reduction. We had people that came and we're going to talk about composting, how to do it successfully at home. We had somebody that was going to come and they offered a service, so curbside composter to come by and pick up your food waste. And then, I think we had one other speaker. Oh, we had on the restaurant side of things, how to be smart with your cooking and buying your ingredients. So smarter grocery shopping to extend your ingredients to work for you and limit the amount of food that you need to throw away. So we had some really good topics and had that all the way kind of ready to go. And that was going to happen in April of 2020. And we essentially pulled the plug on it.
Okay.
And that was going to be joint with Promega. So, kind of getting back to your partnerships, Josh, we've partnered with Promega, and then it gets out to their entire employee base, which is pretty significant at this point. So our last two forums have been partnerships with Promega, but those are my two ideas: food waste and dark skies, I think.
I mean, Chris, how are these events organized or held? Is it?
I think, kind of depends on, what we want to focus on, but, for example, our forum events, the last one that we held in 2019, which was a climate change forum, was one where we had a few different speakers come in and speak at Promega. And so both Promega employees and community members that we did outreach to came to the event, and we had it at their BTC building in their auditorium there. We've also had events in the Fitchburg library in the meeting room. We may still need to be in a creative space. So dark skies, seems like it could be an outdoor event, an evening event potentially, and have a couple of key speakers come in and talk about that subject. So we're really flexible on the space to go to. We've just kind of adjust with what the situation is, and I think we still need to have the ability to be a little bit fluid with COVID, but hopefully that is reducing as we get into 2022.
Okay. Well, I'm a member of the Madison Astronomy Society, and I've talked to them about the dark sky ordinance, and they're very excited about the city of Fitchburg potentially developing an ordinance. So they're more than happy to give a presentation on dark sky ordinance and talk about it. They've got a lot of well-known people in the area who are very familiar with that program. So they would definitely be more than willing to probably to have some type of event to educate people on that. I mean, they just had a program last month with a dark sky at the Monona Terrace, where they brought in telescopes and everything and talked to people about the planets and the stars and everything like that. So they could do something similar to that as well. And they actually have a research Yahara research facility out just south of a fish hatchery down about 30 minutes south of Fitchburg, where you can go out and look at stars and everything. It's pretty cool.
Yeah, I guess, one item that I have, just the other day when the Milky Way galaxy was supposed to be visible, I went out and, we're just where I live in Swan Creek, we're just to the south of Madison. And, does it, I always wonder, well, no matter what we do in Fitchburg, we're always going to have the lights of Madison that are going to hurt our dark skies. And so I think that's a key thing that we would need to try to have to explain to people and understand, because that's where I struggle with it a little bit is, I can't see it because I'm close to Madison. And so then, I was thinking about driving somewhere. Where do I need to drive to get to a sufficient dark sky to see the Milky Way galaxy? I'm not really sure how far I need to go. And maybe that's part of the education process with going through the ordinance and whatnot.
Well, you definitely could see it 30 minutes south of us. So I've seen it.
I'm just wondering, on the dark sky ordinance, isn't that directed more toward council than, wouldn't we want to get it passed and then educate the public on what we're doing? isn't our effort toward council rather than an outreach?
It's a good point, Diane. I mean, how do we educate council on that?
Well, the only thing I can think is that the tree advisory committee has been working on a tree protection ordinance for a while, pretty much the entire year. It's still ongoing, won't be complete till next year, but basically, I as the alter liaison just report what we're working on in that regard. And we have those conversations publicly, so it's public record in terms of going back and recreating what's been happening on the development of it. So if we did want to develop a dark sky ordinance, it could be something that we work on regularly through RCC and maybe some small group meetings as well. And then I, as part of the council, would just consistently report back on what the effort is to council in the hopes of educating the council before a vote.
Okay.
And are you thinking that by educating them that we're working on it, that would persuade them in favor of it?
Yeah, I mean, I think some part of the battle is just making sure that people know that it's on the horizon, and if they have issues with it, that they have opportunities to speak on it in advance. So I think sometimes it's just a kind of more of an awareness campaign, and alders are going to make the decision about whether or not they want to do a lot of research. It's just a matter about providing them with enough information readily accessible to them that they can educate themselves and bring up any concerns prior to like the actual vote.
I think it would be great if we can get a second committee of the whole slot and have that organization that you mentioned, Ron, come and present to the council.
Okay.
What do you think, Gabriella?
I think it's definitely a possibility. I think it's just a matter of making sure that you can get on the calendar for committee of the whole, and that
we're on for February.
Yeah, but I might time it a little bit closer to when either the beginning of the effort to craft the orders or somewhere in the middle, where there's an opportunity for the council to kind of get educated about it. But yeah, I think that's certainly an option. Just a matter of getting on the schedule. But I wouldn't do it too far away from when the vote would potentially take place, just because the council can change every year. There's 4 alders up for re-election every April. So I wouldn't necessarily want to educate a council and then the ordinance doesn't come back until after the election and there's seats that change.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that timing matters.
January, February, and March, actually, and April tend to be really busy for RCC. So I don't think that we'd have a heck of a lot of time to work on it between now and like May. And then let's see, even what happens with the operating budget and capital budget as far as committee of the whole going into summer?
Committee of the whole, also capital improvement plan is typically July, August process. And then the budget process is kind of end of September through early November. And the October committee of the whole is dedicated to budget amendments exclusively.
And what about the CIP? Does that take up any of the committee of the whole?
You know what? It's escaping me right now. I'm so deep into budget season. I can't remember what happened in July. I'll have to take a look and see.
So maybe Ron, we could target like July or August to be on the committee of the whole, and maybe that would give us time to do some legwork in advance, and maybe if that organization you mentioned doesn't mind, maybe they could present to RCC and then a second presentation to council several months later, just to get us up to speed.
Sure, I think that would be great. Yeah. So maybe plan on having Madison Astronomy Society present something maybe in July on the dark sky.
To the council.
To us first.
Oh, to us. Okay. Yeah. So that doesn't help with the annual event planning though, Chris.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not 100% opposed to having an event before, but I do think that you're right that it, if it became an ordinance, it would make more sense to have the event after it became an ordinance.
Yeah.
it is, part of it is like getting people excited about it, like, behind it. Like, we want to make this happen in Fitchburg, and that might help it become an ordinance. So I'm a little bit torn, but I do side a little bit more on, it probably makes sense to have it if it actually becomes an ordinance. But, we need, obviously myself, I need to be a little bit more educated, with the example that I shared, and then Ron stating that you have to go up 30 minutes south. So does it matter what we do in Fitchburg? Is that gonna, help us see things better in Fitchburg if we're always gonna have the, kind of the light of Madison, that's gonna, hurt our potential viewing of the night skies?
Well, hopefully that's a step for Madison to make changes as well. So.
And Ron,
So-
do they emphasize the ecological impacts as well as the astronomical impacts for?
Yeah. There's safety, energy consumption, all kinds of things that are associated with the dark sky ordinance.
What about like migratory
Yeah.
birds and other things of that? I mean, there's
Yep.
a number of other ecological aspects, so we want to make sure that we're comprehensive on that.
Oh, yeah. It's just not looking at the dark sky at night. It's a lot of
Okay.
different
Yeah.
things with it. So
Okay.
thanks, Josh. That's a good point.
Yeah.
Ron, was it Verona's dark sky ordinance that you had shared?
No, City of Pittsburgh.
City of Pittsburgh. Okay,
Yeah.
that's right. I thought I had seen that another Dane County municipality had put some effort into this, but maybe I'm remembering incorrectly. But yeah, certainly, if we wanted to look at trying to persuade neighbors to pick up something like this as well, try to get the county to look into it.
Yeah.
It takes one municipality to start it and create some momentum. So
Yeah.
I wouldn't let the fact that we have neighbors with lights dissuade us from pushing something like this if we see value in it.
Yeah, I agree with that. So, we kind of, it would be nice to not be the, that we're setting the pace on it. In Fitchburg, that's what we kind of pride ourselves on with, the sustainability work that we do, that we lead something forward and then our neighbors follow. So, I am, getting it more and more. And I look forward to learning more about it in 2022.
Okay.
Oh, and here's why I was confused for what it's worth. The city of Verona does not have a dark sky ordinance. The town of Verona does since 2017.
Yeah.
So that could also be a model for us to look at.
Okay.
Just to follow up on the CIP process, we have half of the committee of the whole meeting in June is dedicated to talking about borrowing needs for the city, but we do not dedicate a whole committee of the whole meeting to it, as we do it in for the budget season.
So maybe Ron, you could request, like, if we have the Madison or the US Geological, whoever you said, present in July to us, maybe we could ask for like a September committee of the whole, an hour at the committee of the whole meeting in September. Maybe that would give us time to get it together.
Okay. And this, it would just be that one topic then, right? For us.
Yeah.
Okay.
And have that group present. Yes.
Okay.
So there's a draft of a City of Madison dark sky ordinance on UW Extension's site. I think they might have one.
When I had conversations with the folks at the Madison Astronomy Society, they said they haven't adopted it yet. And they've been kind of just hemming and hawing. So they weren't very proactive moving it forward. So
Also, there is an extension draft from 2016 that we could use as a foundation if we wanted to.
okay, yeah, I'll take a look at those.
So yeah, Madison does have an exterior lighting ordinance, but I don't think it's technically a dark sky ordinance.
You're right. Yeah, it is exterior lighting.
Yeah. I mean, under the dark sky ordinance, you would happily, Dark Sky Society actually recommends certain types of bulbs and things like that, and techniques on how to arrange your lighting and do your lighting. So they actually, they don't sell bulbs, but they actually recommend the type of bulbs that you can use. So.
We have 1 minute left on this topic.
Okay.
was just gonna chime in and say, if we were still looking at potential ideas for an event, if we were gonna hold off on doing something around this issue, Ron, you had talked about the invasive species issue.
Correct.
And so I was just curious if there was, potential event
Well,
that could be done around that issue.
Yeah, they would like to hold the southern chapter, a South Central Invasive Species Program would like to work with us to do, like I mentioned earlier, to do some type of a tour in a park or an area, or maybe around one of our detention facilities, to talk about invasive species, to take residents around.
Didn't we talk about doing that in May?
Hey, yeah.
Can we get that on their calendar and our calendar?
Yeah. I have it note to make sure I have that on my, well, I updated on the calendar here, but I'll talk with them just to remind them again about it. So
Is May going to be late enough to identify a lot of those?
I thought that's what they suggested.
yeah, that's
Okay.
what they suggested. Yeah.
Okay.
Maybe that'll be our annual event this year.
Okay.
Maybe
Could
we'll have
be.
maybe we'll have a second one in the fall on Dark Sky. We'll just have to kind of see how that goes.
Okay.
Yeah, we typically shoot for, like before we were into this pandemic, we typically shot for events a quarter. So sometimes, that would be like we could still work in like a bring your own bags event at a grocery store. Maybe that's, we decided to do that in first quarter, since that's, kind of getting people retrained on their habits, with that coming out of the pandemic. And it's not something where, we necessarily, need to have a bunch of people in a room. We can just be kind of outside the grocery store. I don't know how much we want to do that in the winter, but we can talk about that as something in early, but then invasive species could be the event that we do in May. Food waste is something that, we can always come back to, circle back to that and have that be, more of a, in a facility or in a, auditorium or in a meeting room type event with a lot of people, that can come back, when we feel like it's safe to do so. We can always look to have these events. So like the annual event is the one that we're really focusing on, and we're going to try to get, kind of go through an extensive marketing effort, find partners, that type of thing. And so, I think I'm on board with that if others are on board with that in May as the annual event.
Yeah, sounds good.
And we might be able to tie in our waterway cleanups too, with that, with invasive species, depending on the timing of everything.
Yeah. Right now we have
plant
it
some
scheduled
seeds,
for April.
Yeah, we usually try to get the waterway done in April before the mosquitoes come out.
Yeah.
Yes.
Before they have you
And
leaf
things
out
grow.
too.
Yeah.
Okay. Are we done the discussions on that topic? And we can move on to 4E, sustainability grants. Phil? I think we probably kind of touched that area briefly.
A little bit. There are a few potential grant sources. So where I spent more of my grant writing time this summer was focused on a couple of bicycling related grants. One with Dane County Parks, and that one we didn't receive for this year, but we're optimistic that without having to submit another application, we'll receive the funding we asked for the North Fish Hatchery Neighborhood Hub next year when they release their funding allocation for 2022. The other was a national organization called People for Bikes. I applied. They do a two-step grant application process. So you submit your initial idea, and then they invite a select number of applicants to submit a full application for grant funding. So I also submitted that initial grant kind of teaser, I guess, for People for Bikes. Wasn't asked to submit a full application, but I will definitely keep an eye on their funding for the future, because there are always a number of different bicycling initiatives and bike related infrastructure things that I think that grant would be good for. For broader sustainability things, I already did mention the Office of Energy Innovation grant. They just released an RFP for that in the last couple of weeks. So I've started reaching out to some different staff, department heads and other staff around Fitchburg to get some ideas for projects that we feel would be strong possibilities for the OEI grant. What we received our grant from them for in the past was working with Slipstream, a third party, and then 6 other Dane County municipalities to research energy usage in these municipalities around Dane County and to create sort of an energy plan for the municipalities. And so, this is something that RCC was involved in and pretty regularly informed about. That's one of 3 different activity types that OEI, that the Office of Energy Innovation funds through this grant. The other ones have to do more with energy efficiency and renewables. So those are the 2 areas that I'm going to be looking at a little bit more closely for potential grant application for this OEI grant next year. I think we have a lot of good possibilities for things that we've looked at and maybe we're kind of delaying because of funding concerns, or maybe not even considering because the funding, the expense is just too great for us to consider. So there's a couple of those that I'd like to try and get money from the Public Service Commission, from the OEI, to see if we can get those over the hump funding wise.
Phil, is that,
sure,
are you referring to some of the Slipstream recommendations for Fitchburg? Would OEI help?
A few of those would be things that I would think about. So anything related to, we do have the funds from Gabriella's amendment several months back to help pay for the incremental cost in upgrading fleet vehicles to more efficient options. But I think that a green fleet is also something that could be a good candidate for OEI funding if there's something that maybe would be even more funding than that pool would qualify for. There were a few solar projects that were mentioned by Slipstream. A couple of them are logistically complicated just because of site specifics, but it's possible that there are some solar options that maybe funding like that could make more viable. But yeah, those are definitely some things I'd be considering, would be some of those recommendations from Slipstream.
How about, I know I'm going to sound like a broken record, but how about the light fixtures in the council chambers and the meeting room?
Lighting is another big one that I want to look at. This is something that I've spoken with kind of our facilities supervisor manager, Kevin Richmond. I've talked with Kevin about several lighting areas that we'd like to make some upgrades, and funding is always a concern with those. LEDs do pay for themselves, but that initial cost, especially once you get into more either larger or more unusual bulb types, they get pretty pricey. So lighting upgrades would be a really good candidate. That's actually one of the areas of efficiency that's called out specifically in the grant guidelines for this OEI grant. So between building lighting upgrades, thinking about maybe parking lot lighting upgrades, if those are things that need to be done, especially if we're looking at a dark sky ordinance, I want to start thinking about, if we're doing outdoor lighting upgrades to LEDs, let's make sure we're doing something that would be in compliance with any potential ordinance that may be passed, so we're not replacing bulbs twice.
Yeah.
But then also street lighting is another big one. I know that Scott and Joran in the Parks Department have been pretty active about upgrading parks lighting to more efficient versions. But if there are more park lights that need to be upgraded, or any street lights that the city owns and operates, there are kind of 3 different ways for street lights to be handled, where either maybe they're owned and operated entirely by the city, maybe entirely by the utility, or maybe there's a partnership between the 2. So any street lights where we actually are in charge of operation and maintenance, those could also be something that I would want to look at for OEI funding. But this is definitely one that I absolutely intend to submit a grant application to OEI, and I think we have a lot of really strong candidates, and so I'm optimistic that we should be able to get something else over the hump with that. And the other big thing is that this past spring, late winter, spring, the Congress passed that the ARPA funding that was related to economic recovery from the COVID pandemic. There was also just the infrastructure bill that passed through Congress. Between those two things, there will be funding made available to states and to municipalities. So again, I want to work with staff, and I'll be starting to do some kind of spitballing ideas for if there are areas. I know there are a lot of projects that have been put on hold because of things like lost revenue from tourism taxes and things like that. There are definitely projects that have been pushed to the back burner that funding is going to be needed to help push forward. But I'm also going to be looking to see if there are any possibilities for projects that we could potentially make use of some of that infrastructure funding as well. I think that especially because there has been a really big focus from this current administration and Congress on not just infrastructure spending, but infrastructure with an equity lens. That's something that, as I've talked about before, and I think the RCC has talked about before, the environmental side of sustainability tends to get the greatest focus, but equity, as you all know, is really important as well. So I think if there are ways that we can make use of some of that funding to push some of our sustainability priorities with that equity lens forward, I think that would be really desirable also. But that's kind of where I'm looking at the moment. The most concrete plan is the Office of Energy Innovation, and it's just about working with staff and kind of trying to figure out what seem like the best candidates, because we don't want to submit too many different ideas. We really want to focus on what we feel are the strongest one or two possibilities there, and then we'll move forward from there.
Phil, if you don't mind jumping in, Phil, I just would like you, just a reminder too, to keep the TID closure in the back of your mind too, in terms of what potentially might be a good candidate. I'm interested in bringing lots of things forward that are my own ideas, but if there's something in particular that could be a good fit as a one-time expense, which I'm sure there are a list, I may be asking you for some advice and ideas come next year. So.
I'll have to grab some coffee.
Great, thanks, Phil.
Yep, thanks.
Okay, all right, we need to move on to the item 5, old business, agenda 5A, kind of a debrief on the fall cycling event that we had last Saturday. Phil?
Sure, yeah, I can make that pretty quick because I believe all of the RCC members here were present on Saturday. So I guess Bill and Gabriella, it went great. The recycling shred event was a huge success. We didn't track vehicles or a total number of participants, but technically the event went from 8 to 11, and we had people show up well in advance and people still trying to come well after 11 o'clock. It had been 2 years since the last shred and recycling event that we were able to host, and clearly there was some pent up demand for this. A lot of people had been holding on to their confidential papers, their expired medication, their electronics to be recycled. So I'm really looking forward to getting the numbers back from the police department and our 2 different vendors to see what the total volume was like. I know in 2019, I looked back at our Green Tier Legacy Communities Report from 2019, and between the 2 events we had that year, we had over 20,000 pounds of confidential papers that were shredded, and over 11 tons, I believe, of electronics recycled, plus 130 pounds of expired and unused, unwanted medications. Really curious to see how close to that we get just from the one event this fall. And yeah, it seemed like it was a big success. I heard a lot of good comments. And for those of you who had participated in this before, because I still had not after 2 years here, it sounds like logistically it was set up really well by Dakota compared to events in the past.
If I could, oh, sorry, Diane, go ahead.
I'd like to give Dakota some kudos for picking up where Claudia left off, because I thought he did a really nice job of getting us squared away and reminding us and getting the things ready for us. The only thing that I would request, that info sheet that he had available for us, I'd like to get that as a PDF before, because I don't have time to read when you're, as you know, I mean, there were people lined up before the event started, so you don't have time to read it the day of. So it'd be nice to have that circulated to the volunteers in advance. But my comment is, well, first of all, I can't tell you how many people thanked us for hosting this.
Yeah.
But secondly, I don't think the lines were any longer than they've been when we've had when we've had regular ones. Certainly not with shredding, and I'm not sure with electronics, but I'm wondering with electronics, I didn't get down there to see how they're operating it, but I'm wondering if we could have more than one line and move things along faster, because there were people that said, I'm not going to wait in line. I'll just send this to the landfill, you know, and that we definitely want to discourage people from doing that. But I thought Pelletieri we were told that Pelletieri staff would not be helping emptying the cars, and the 3 staff that were there were readily emptying the stuff from the cars. So we had way too many volunteers at shredding, but I think the ones that went down to help with electronics, you probably helped speed things up down there, didn't you, Josh and Ron?
I went down there just to look at it, see what was going on. I guess I was surprised that, you know, that it was moving kind of slowly compared to the shredding operation, but I understand that there's a lot, you know, they had to handle large appliances, a lot of different things. They had them staged into appliances and things in different areas, and wrapping them up with the plastic wrapped and putting them into the truck. So they had a lot bigger operation going over there. Then they had somebody, I guess, checking the cars as each car came in through. I don't know what they were asking. Well, maybe they were asking what kind of appliances they have.
So there was a cost for certain larger appliances, and so that was part of the delay as well, as that once you confirmed what items were in people's cars, then working out that payment.
So they were actually taking money there?
Oh yeah.
Oh, yes. Yep.
Oh, okay.
So yeah,
Yeah,
I
so
mean,
So go ahead, Chris.
Josh and I were kind of, you know, trying to see how we could move it as fast along. I mean, the bottom line is there was just a ton of volume. I mean, I asked a few people as to how long they waited in the line, and they said that they waited for like 10 minutes. So I thought that was actually pretty good considering where Kim was at.
Oh, yeah.
And
Yeah.
we were flying through cars. I mean, we had kind of a system down. And, you know, Josh and I were attacking one car, and then their crew was attacking the other car and trying to get things out as quickly as we could. You know, we thought that a couple points in time we could do 2 points of sale, but ultimately, you know, kind of looking at their whole operation, you know, they could have 2 points of sale and we could move the cars through, you know, a little bit faster, but then they would have a huge mess that they would have to clean up. So a couple of them started to, like, you know, do the saran wrapping of the materials. And so I think they, you know, they've done a lot of these events. So they said they've done like 27 of these events. And they said ours was by far the one that was most attended of all those events. So we got a lot of electronics recycled in Fitchburg on Saturday for sure.
I think if anything, we should talk with that organization about if they can staff higher, because I think that their point of sale, you know, they're the only ones who can run point of sale, and they're the only ones who can wrap and get the stuff on the trucks. And in all honesty, if we have them only dedicated to that and we literally had volunteers cleaning out the cars, then I think it would go faster. I think that was the challenge. It was clearly the biggest event they'd had all summer. They were flooded. Every time we'd try to do 2 points of sale, right, he'd get behind and he'd have too many TVs stacked up, and he'd have to, you know, find a way to get them on the truck. And so, like, if anything, I'm not surprised at all that we were turning people away. And so if that's the volume that we can bring to them, maybe we have a renewed conversation with them next, you know, at the next event about, like, hey, we've proved that this is what our attendance can look like. What can we do to, you know, expedite this?
Mhm.
They should.
Well, and I would say, I would say that from a traffic flow perspective, because the last number of years I've greeted the cars and sent them in the right direction, that Dakota and Phil or whoever put the pylons out for that first turn, that worked perfectly, because before I would show people where to turn and they would miss that first turn, even though there was a sign that said paper shredding to the left. And, it was very obvious that people were there more for the electronic recycling than the paper. There was definitely not as many people shredding at this event as we've had in the past. At one point, I was running down Fish Hatchery and cars were lined up all the way down to the library. And I was asking them what they had so that I could tell them which lane to turn in when they got up to the turn point, because I had two lines going in, the left side for the paper shred and the right side for the electronics. And then same up the hill, there were cars just lined up. And so I was kind of directing traffic in terms of where they were turning in. So I feel like it was so much more than what we've had in the past. I did not stop. I didn't even get to drink my coffee for 2 hours. Like, I was that busy talking to people, but it was great.
If nobody had the pleasure of watching Kim work, that was very impressive.
Yeah.
We're really on top of things.
Well, I was like
there.
directing traffic, saying, now make sure you watch the oncoming cars so you don't get hit when you turn left. And there was cars coming in, and people were actually very friendly and very patient. They understood. I said, we haven't had this event for 2 years, so there's a lot of demand, and the line is moving pretty quickly. We did have someone who got frustrated and said they would come back, and then they came back and it was too late. So then I gave them the information for, the resource solutions, or we would be holding this again in the spring. So, but for the most part, everyone was in very good mood to, and came back. Some people just came for the paper shredding and then saw we were doing electronics. And I actually, Dakota handed me the form. And so when people were asking certain questions, I was able to show them the sheet and explain, for TVs, it's going to cost this much. They're taking, checks, credit cards, cash. And a lot of people came back that went home and rounded up different things. So I thought, just from a traffic flow perspective, it was so much smoother than it has been in previous years. And
Good.
I thought it went really well.
We
Yeah,
definitely want to add a note to future publications to recommend cash or credit. Because the woman at point of sale was also saying she can't believe how many people still paying checks, and that slows the process down a lot.
Yeah.
Really?
So I think for electronics, we want to put an asterisk on there that we recommend that, because if we can take some of that down, I think it'll also go faster.
Why do checks slow it down?
Because people got to sit there, get the total, write it. If you can hand cash, or if she can run one of those, cash or card, it's faster than somebody writing a check and her putting the information in for the check number and everything else. And so that she said they're always shocked by how many people they get writing checks, and that's always the slowest option.
I wonder if they can pay in advance like they did for the clean sweep.
Something we could ask them about. Definitely a few things that I'm going to be taking the lead organizing the one for the spring. I'll be reaching out to both Pelletary and Resource Solutions this week or next to find out what their availability is like for next year, spring and fall.
And Phil, I would also say including that map with those materials was very helpful. I had a number of people who told me they looked at the map ahead of time, so they knew, kind of where to go.
Oh, fantastic.
So yeah, I think that was very helpful. The one challenge we had, though, I think, is the med drop. I had one woman who was just there for the med drop, and then trying to direct her over to where she needed to go when cars were backed up for, the electronics, and then it was blocked off. So I had to explain, go to the second turn, go in front of the community center and loop around to the police station. So that's something we might want to think through next time.
Yeah.
Speaking of med drop, I thought the banner was a nice addition. It made it a lot easier for people to see since we didn't have somebody directing cars, I thought that was really nice. And one thing Pelletieri mentioned to me is that they've had 9 of these shredding events this year. Most of them they're doing in the late afternoon, early evening, like 4 to 6 or 5 to 7, which works out easier. It's easier for them. And they said that they've still had the same amount of participation. So maybe we should consider doing that, which would free up a weekend. And I don't know if we could do that with electronics, but anyway, food for thought.
Okay. Well, thank you everyone who participated. Like everyone said, I think it was a great turnout, and really appreciate everyone's time, and look forward to the spring recycling event.
Yeah, we also had Scott came out from Fact TV to record this a little bit.
Oh yeah,
So look
right,
for
yeah.
for that to show up on Fact TV on the website or YouTube soon.
Yeah.
Maybe next year I'll see about getting Fitchburg Star to cover it as well.
Quick question from me. I'm gonna announce this at council, probably not tomorrow, but the next time. So the staff involved were Dakota, Claudia, and Phil, and then obviously the RCC members and the volunteers, and Pelletieri was running it. Is there anyone else that I'm missing in terms of acknowledging them?
My neighbor offered to help, so she came when I was done. I had to leave early.
Great.
And Resource Solutions, did you get them, Claudia?
Resource Solutions,
Claudia?
okay.
Yeah, for the electronics.
And does the police department run the med drop, or is it a?
It's an ongoing thing, but it's hosted by the police department.
Mm-hmm.
Great. I just want to make sure I give a shout out. I'm really sorry I wasn't able to join you. I've been quite ill the last couple of weeks, so.
Well, glad you're better.
Yeah, thank you so much. It's so great to hear. I'm so happy to. I can't wait to actually see you all in person again soon. So maybe soon.
All right, I think we need to move on to the next item on the agenda, 5B, Fitchburg Star articles, Diane.
We're 6 minutes over, but I'll make this very short.
Okay.
I'm writing the article for December, and we already have Ron and Josh covering January and February. So I think we decided, correct me if I'm wrong, that we would commit to writing at least 9 articles for next year. So we need people to start thinking of ideas to write about, and then we'll revisit this in January, and maybe we can fill out the next couple of months after that. So
Okay.
That's all I have.
Right, great, thank you.
So now we're ahead of schedule by 3 minutes.
Yeah.
I was gonna ask briefly on Chris's bring your own bag idea. I wondered if we wanted to put maybe even a partial plug in one of the articles, just reminding people that a lot of places have gone back to allowing that again, and just kind of putting a plug in for the fact, just like remind people to start bringing them again. I mean, even something small would be a good reminder.
Well, my article for December is titled Waste Not, Want Not. I don't know if that title will get in the start. Jim usually comes up with his own title, but it's kind of a catch-all for a lot of things, including, I started out doing it about food. And then when Chris said maybe we could do an annual event on food waste, I thought, well, my article needs to be pushed back a little bit. But I started doing it about food, but I thought there are many other things that you can throw in there. So it's going to be a catch-all for many things, including reusable bags instead of plastic or paper. But
Okay.
we can also hit it later. We can put it on the Fitchburg's city page, reminding people you can use reusable bags now in stores. However, I was at, I think I was at Farm and Fleet, and they're not supposed to be using reusable bags yet. So anyway, it's a good thought.
Okay, well, thanks, Diane. Item 5C, the Aldo Leopold Mmsc Recycling Initiative Update, Chris and Kim.
Sure. So we met recently with Leopold staff, and we've learned that it's just a real challenge, and it's been a challenge for us. We haven't been able to get into the school, and so we have these occasional Zoom meetings. The school staff are just so busy with COVID related things, and the custodial teams are, there's a lot of turnover. So the lead we've worked with when we went into the pandemic at Leopold is still there, but it sounds like his staff has turned over quite a bit. And so even though we have a lot of the recycling supplies in there for doing station recycling, and we don't think, or we know that they haven't really used those items so much because the lead custodian is so overwhelmed that he hasn't had time to really get it all organized. And so these are the types of things that if we could get into the schools, we would be doing. And so it's kind of a ongoing, you know, I don't want to say battle, but challenge, you know, in trying to get, you know, some of the initiatives really kind of going. But on the side, there still is a lot of, you know, good things that are happening on this initiative. And we are talking with leadership at MMSD. So their chief of CEO, their chief operations officer, we've been working with and talking through kind of, you know, these concepts of limiting food waste. You know, the MMSD, you know, food and nutrition, to be honest with you, they're challenged right now with, you know, just trying to get enough food on the table. Like, you know, the supply chain issues are real for them. And so, you know, it's, you know, that's more of their focus right now than it is the recycling and waste reduction arm. So that's kind of where we've come in. But the Sustained Dane, who, you know, we've kind of started to work with. So Kim and Diane and I all started this initiative as volunteers at Leopold. At this point, you know, our little effort in Fitchburg has led to $98,000 in grants coming into the greater Madison area to help out with different things in schools. So it's, I mean, pretty wild, that number, how big it's.
Yeah.
5,000 to do something at, you know, a middle school after we got things started at Leopold. And then the Carton Council came forward and gave 10,000 to try to do some pilots with, you know, seeing how we could do it in the pandemic, but also figuring out, you know, kind of how to do these breakfast stations and hallways, potentially recycle some of the cartons. And then that led to a $30,000 grant to recycling better across the greater Madison area, which led to billboards and things with UW-Madison and so forth. And then with those things all starting to go, then the World Wildlife Foundation came forward. And that's kind of where my work on the side will start to take off. And also Kim and Diane and others that are interested, we're going to be doing 30 to 50 food waste audits in schools over the next 2 school years. So this school year and next school year. Which will be looking really at the food waste. I've already talked to John Walsh at Dane County, and he is interested in bringing his team members into that. As you guys may have seen, the plans for the future landfill for Dane County is going to be at Yahara Golf Course. So with that, the Dane County team will come in, and they really want food waste to be part of that next facility. And so John and I had a conversation about that last week, and he has several team members that are very passionate about making this a reality in Dane County. So I think encouraging stuff in terms of the infrastructure that we really need to have in order to kind of you know, capture some of the energy and start to limit our food waste. So you know, it may get us back to a pilot that we did in 2012, which some of you may not be familiar with, that we did a composting pilot where we actually collected food waste for about, what was it, Diane, 300 residents in Fitchburg for about a year period.
I'm not sure if it was that many, but anyway.
So, and then just today, the Carton Council awarded another $5,000 grant. And so now that is to take our expansion of having carton recycling in 2 schools up to 5 schools. So that just came through today. So that's where we got to $98,000 in grant. But that all started with kind of, well, really with Kim going to breakfast with her son in kindergarten.
Nice work, Chris. Wow. And Kim.
Really incredible work.
Yeah.
Congratulations on all those accomplishments. That's incredible.
Yeah.
it's fun to see it to continue to kind of blossom. And we're still kind of in the mix, but it's more of an advisory role at this point. And so, but I mean, that's where it needed to be. I mean, there's no way that our volunteer committee could have tackled this for the greater Madison area. But we've been fortunate to find good partners that are taking it to the next step. But we still have a little bit of input on, how that goes. And really kind of, since nobody's really from Sustained Dane hasn't been in the schools, it's really kind of like what's worked in the schools. And, we know that from our Aldo Leopold project.
Now, will that be part of the presentation for the committee of a whole in February? Or part of the slides?
Yeah, I mean, I think, we can put a slide or two to it.
Yeah.
Talk about it. I think it's a pretty cool story to tell, from, one person's motivation, really how that kind of swelled into being a passion project for myself.
Yeah. As
well. And, I know Diane's very passionate about this one as well. So, it's amazing that we're actually, still having conversations. Kim and I are still having conversations now. When we started this, our boys were really in first grade in the same classroom. And now they're both in 7th grade and not even going to Aldo school anymore. But we're still, putting some effort into Aldo Leopold school. So
we were just getting some momentum going when the pandemic hit. So things are sort of, it just takes a long time to change things. And the potential, if all of Madison schools started recycling, the potential is incredible.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, when you look at the amount of waste, that we've been able to reduce just by doing this, just in one school, one elementary school, it's pretty remarkable.
Mm-hmm.
And kids are starting to take this message home too. So we were outside doing an outdoor waste audit of one of the dumpsters, and a kid came by and he said, "Oh, my dad, the other day, he was going to throw a carton out." And I stopped him because I said, "Do you know that you can recycle cartons?" And the dad actually didn't know. And so the son, taught him that cartons can be recycled. And so, those are the types of things that, you don't really see, or we're not going to see in the schools, but, kind of getting the culture and empowering kids to, care about those types of things is really kind of the take-home message that we want to be kind of going across our schools and getting that next generation into good habits with recycling.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Great. That's good news. Okay. See, I guess we're pretty much on schedule now, or a little bit ahead schedule.
Yep.
Yeah. Thanks, Chris. Next is the council update, Gabriella.
Yes. So I'm gonna run through a few things and then I'm gonna swing back to the budget.
Okay.
So a couple of things that have happened at council recently. We're gonna apply for direct state assistance for our public transit system. Given the tie of public transportation to sustainability, I thought you'd be interested. It's a good thing overall. Basically, the state, we were getting our funding through Madison, but tier A cities, which is just Madison and Milwaukee, are penalized by the state government for transit assistance. So because we're a tier B city, if we apply on our own, we actually end up getting more funding overall, which benefits the entire regional network, honestly. So it's looking like we would have it between $30,000 and $100,000 extra a year going towards public transit if we apply directly through the state. There's some administrative time that's required, which our transportation engineer has said that he can handle, our finance director can handle. So they've taken that on and we're going to apply for it, and we'll find out more about what that looks like financially over the next year and then in future years as well. So it's kind of a cool little note. 2 items about intersections. First, the Lacey and Seminole highway intersection, that design is officially going to be a roundabout. And the design is being worked on by a firm, and it's looking like I believe the construction will begin next year. Can you confirm that, Bill?
Yeah, we're looking at starting construction in June of next year.
Okay. That just
Over the
seems so
summer.
fast to me, but okay. It's amazing. So the roundabout's coming soon, along with the reconstruction of West Lacey Road. In addition, second project, and there's some reconstruction on Cyene Road next year as well. And the intersection of Sherrill Drive and Cyene has been determined to be a lighted intersection, just given the amount of pedestrian traffic in the area. They thought it was decided that a roundabout wasn't a good fit for that particular intersection. There was a proposal on the table to do a protected intersection, which is an interesting kind of a newer intersection design that's meant to protect pedestrians and bicyclists a little bit more. That was rejected. Well, it was a tie vote at the council and the mayor voted it down. So that was rejected. So instead we're doing just a regular lighted intersection. I thought that was a notable. And then, although I would say in general, the staff and also the council is amenable to using roundabouts wherever possible, just because there's so many benefits safety wise and also environmentally wise that that's pretty much a general feeling amongst a lot of people in the government. And then you'll be happy to know that we discussed solid waste rates at the council meeting, last council meeting, or maybe 2 council meetings ago. It was last, seems like a million years ago. So anyway, it was originally 220, and I know you recommended to bring it down. We actually amended it to be 215.
Thank you.
Yes,
So that
yeah,
was
great.
passed by the council. So
Thank you.
yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah. Good news. And it was a great conversation. So we'll see where we go from there next year. A couple small items. This is not really RCC related, but redistricting is complete. So if you're interested, since you're all very active citizens, there's a good chance you have a new polling place. And there's a pretty good chance that you're in a different district. So I would take a look at the maps online and let me know if you have trouble finding them, but there's a redistricting section and the map is 1AB, and the Fitchburg Star recently did a write-up on it.
How are residents being notified when they have a new polling place and they're in a different district? Is it a letter going out?
Yeah, we talked about this with the city clerk. I believe it's a postcard that goes out to notify about a change in polling place.
Okay.
And I believe a change in district. I'm trying to get more information from her on precisely when that's going to happen, but it obviously has to happen in relative quick succession because it's, forward recently. Fortunately, the polling place changes make sense. So now basically each polling place is in its district versus literally before almost all but one were outside of the district that it served. So we're correcting that mistake, but as a result of that, almost everybody is having a changing polling place, unless you happen to also change districts that, and the polling place changed with it. So I would encourage everyone that's, a voter to pay attention, and in the myvote.wi.gov, the state voting website, that will be updated as well. So there's going to be more than one way to find out where you land. The tree advisory committee is continuing to work on the tree protection ordinance. That's probably going to come forward next year. We don't have any meetings scheduled for the rest of the year, so the work continues kind of behind the scenes, but hopefully that'll be sometime in the spring. We'll bring that to council. And the parks committee is still working on the parks and open space plan. I believe that there is going to be another meeting in January to discuss that. Wade Thompson is heading that up in the planning department, and then Scott Endel, the parks director, is also part of that process, and the commission's closely tracking it. And then tomorrow, this is exciting. We have a very short agenda for the council in addition to the budget we're talking about tomorrow. But one of the things on the agenda is R17721, which is a purchase of a police department administrative vehicle. And they are proposing a hybrid vehicle.
All right.
Which I believe would be the first hybrid vehicle in the city of Fitchburg. They are proposing to use the hybrid electric vehicle fund in order to pay for the cost, the increased cost of buying a hybrid vehicle. So I am very excited about that tomorrow. Matt Leahy, the interim chief, he wrote up a memo explaining that they are excited to do this, and they think that the reason they want to do a administrative vehicle, you know, it's not used as much as the squad cars. However, they're able to put some of the kind of specialized equipment that they use in police vehicles in it, and they can kind of learn about how the vehicle functions, how it works, what the pain points might be, in the hope that as we continue to purchase police vehicles, they can start doing hybrids because they'll have a familiarity with this type of vehicle. So really exciting development. I can barely hold back my excitement. So that's happening tomorrow.
Gabriella,
Yeah.
did you have a chance to talk to somebody at the state about the buying pool and getting?
Yeah, I discussed it with our state senator, and I'm still trying to get a final answer about what that looks like. It's probably not going to be something that would go through the legislative process. It's more of a matter of making sure that administratively the department that oversees that is able to add those vehicles and knows that municipalities are looking for them. So yes, I have had discussions with
Great.
Senator Melissa Eggard about it.
Do we know how many non-police vehicles out there we have in the city?
The total fleet, Phil, do
Yeah.
you know the total fleet?
I don't.
It'd be an interesting number to look at. I don't know. Yeah, off the top.
I mean, I just like to know why can't we start really converting those to electric vehicles? You know?
That's definitely.
So it depends what kind of vehicles we're talking. A large chunk of the vehicles in our fleet, there are not electric options for, and so we're more heavy duty trucks that the Public Works Department has,
Right. Yeah.
Street sweepers and plows, things like that.
Right. Yeah.
The number of vehicles with electric alternatives would be a lot smaller. I don't really know off the top of my head, but I'd guess fewer than 20. Possibly single digits, but I don't know, Bill, if you have any idea.
Yeah, we're probably looking at, between 12 and 15 vehicles that I think that are non-heavy duty trucks that could be converted over.
Mm-hmm.
Those definitely.
And that is something I have talked with our fleet supervisor, Mark Hodel, about. We're kind of looking at what options are and what's a realistic replacement schedule for anything that would be eligible.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think the big win though is the conversation has been started.
Yep.
The department heads, they know they're going to get the question.
Yeah.
So they're thinking about it, and if it works for the department, I think they're going to strongly consider it. And having that fund truly made a difference, because the police department, it wasn't in the budget to buy a hybrid vehicle, but because that funding was available, they can make that decision easily and without there being sort of we reduce the barriers. And I think the police department, that's a huge win in particular, because the gasoline that's used in the city is the vast majority of the cost is from the police department because of how they use their vehicles. So if we only
Hello?
We lost her.
Yeah. We lost you, Gabriella.
There you go.
There she is.
Are you back?
Yeah.
Okay.
Frozen in
So
time.
the very last thing is
But
budget.
before you move on, way to think out of the box. Thanks for doing that, Gabriella.
Yeah.
Good job.
Thank you. I really appreciate that. It's a great day for Fitchburg. And
Yep.
it's going to be very overshadowed by the budget. So hopefully we can celebrate it at some point down the line. But glad that you all appreciate it. So okay, so back to budget. The budget amendments, there's 25 amendments to the budget. Those were discussed as we've been talking about all along. They were discussed extensively at the October 27th Committee of the Whole meeting. And then we are having the final discussion tomorrow at council. There's a public hearing that starts around 7:30, maybe a little bit after. It depends on, we're trying to get through the rest of the council agenda before we do the public hearing. It certainly will be no earlier than 7:30 p.m. So the public hearing will happen, followed by a discussion of each budget amendment in turn. The discussion is very limited, so to keep it very tight, so we're not going to be there all night. The Committee of the Whole is really intended for those kind of more meandering, long conversations. So hopefully we'll roll through the amendments one by one. I think many of you have seen the items, but in terms of things that you might be interested in, there's a number of them. The first would be, I propose to increase our urban forester from a 0.6 full-time position to a full-time position. So 3 days a week to 5 days a week. That's on the agenda. Aldo Radafrado actually proposed to move it from a 0.6 position to a 0.8 position. So that's also on the table. Add funding for sustainability planning is number 10, $25,000. Obviously, that would just be kind of a starting point.
Gabrielle, you know why that wasn't considered in the first place?
The forester?
No, the sustainability plan. In your last notes, you mentioned that it wasn't included.
I am not 100% certain. I think it's just a prioritization. The mayor wasn't one of his priorities. There was only $12,000 left in the tax levy from the mayor's proposed budget. So with that in mind, I did propose offsets to the budget to pay for some of this. So it certainly will pay for at least the increase in the urban forester's hours and the sustainability planning. I've submitted about $76,000 in offsets to cover both of those with some room to spare. So those are there's 4 amendments then. So it's those 4 are the most important, the 2 offsets, and then the urban forester increase and the sustainability planning are the key 4 for me personally. There's also that lower increase in urban forester hours for Aldo Radafrado. And then I've also included 3 amendments that I don't necessarily think will pass, but I thought were important to discuss. Number 13 is add funding for tree plantings. It would add $15,000 to the budget, mostly for tree replacements. We are actually probably going to end up removing more trees than we're able to replace based on the budget going into 2022 in the city. Amendment number 16 is to add funding for native plantings in Fitchburg parks, kind of an idea to pilot kind of a native area, replacing some of the turf grass that's really unused in parks with native plantings. And then number 17 is to add funding to pilot sustainable vegetation in street medians. This is an idea I have to remove the turf grass that's in some of the busy street medians, replace it with something that's either like low profile that doesn't require mowing or wildflowers or native plantings, whatever will be appropriate and would function well given the fact that there's a high salted area. But really just to get rid of that turf grass that needs to be mowed, both for environmental reasons, budget reasons, and then also safety reasons. I mean,
all the stuff that they're putting on the fish hatchery right now. Yeah, it's all landscape grass down there.
Yeah, I think there are going to be some
right by the belt line. It's not. You know, when
you come by a pick and save and all that area up through there, that's just grass and every now and then a tree.
Well, I would also point out that on the west, let's see, PD west of the Verona Road interchange, it's not grass. They put plants in. So I think we're making progress along those lines.
Yeah, and I hope that we can hopefully make it a shift in policy. My hope is that there would be a shift in policy where we start off by planting something that's not turf grass. I'd like to plant something that's beautiful, but something that's not turf grass. And that has other benefits. So
Josh, at the last meeting, you mentioned there might be grants available for native plantings.
I was just going to bring that up. Claudia followed up with me, and I got her to kind of the clarification on the grant types. And so I think she talked about submitting one for one of the drainage spaces in McKee Park, or McKee Farms, sorry. And Gabriella, I was going to say, if the stuff you're suggesting for native planting within Fitchburg Parks doesn't come through for amendment, or in addition, that's exactly the kind of thing that the county environmental council would entertain for a grant request, and those should open in around March. And they're open to municipalities. We want to, they want to see it in a public space like a park. I don't know about the throughway planting or like more of like the road planting. I think there's definitely a focus on visibility and kind of having it more of a common space. But yeah, all those discussions are definitely in line with that grant.
Awesome. We'll need to touch base and follow up especially after we know where everything lands tomorrow. And then just to kind of round it off, I also submitted 6 amendments to the budget related to the stormwater budget. Upon further discussion, it was really intended to decrease the workload on the Public Works Department going into next year in terms of stormwater. My understanding, based on conversations with Bill Balke over the last few weeks, is that they think that they can handle the projects on the plate. So I will likely remove those. I'm planning to withdraw those amendments. And then in terms of Public Works stormwater, it looks like we are very likely, it's not completely certain, but we're very likely to have both an assistant director of Public Works next year and a part-time stormwater engineer in addition to Claudia's position. So there should be more staff time being able to dedicate to things like stormwater. So potentially a lot of changes coming to Public Works, which we will know around this time tomorrow. So
Oh, you're optimistic.
I'm an optimist. That's a characteristic, a deeply ingrained characteristic of me. So anyway, all of that's to say that there is a public hearing tomorrow around 7:30. If anyone wants to, I know the sustainability plan is really kind of that item is very much part of this discussion. If any or all of you want to come and speak, I think it would be great if at least one person could come, but if anyone that feels compelled to speak on that in particular, or any of the other items, if you want, that's a great opportunity. You can come in person or you can get a Zoom link. And if you aren't able to, or prefer not to speak in person, you can submit written testimony to the council in support of it. So wanted you all to be aware of that. And there are other amendments as well in terms of you should certainly take a look and see if there's anything else that you personally want to advocate for. But just given the discussions here, the sustainability plan might be the candidate.
Is that something that as a commission that we want to go on record formally to support tomorrow, or what are your thoughts?
I mean, I think that anyone that comes to speak, I would encourage you to talk about, well, it's really up to you, but I think there's nothing wrong with saying, I'm a member of the RCC and we've been a Resource Conservation Commission and we've been discussing this, and here's why I think this is important for the city. I think the fact that you've had these discussions as part of like an open city meeting is relevant. I know the chair of the Tree Advisory Committee and the chair of Parks both came at one of the earlier budget hearings to talk about the need for an increased hours for our urban forester. So there's definitely precedent for having a committee come. They're there personally, but they're very clear that they are representing a strongly held opinion of the committee as well.
Mhm.
I was just thinking like a written document, that RCC strongly supports this and this is why.
I think a written document could be great. I think that in terms of timeline, I mean, I'm of the belief that in-person testimony is more compelling than written testimony. But unless you have a lot to say and a lot of specific things to say, Phil submitted a great memo along with the sustainability planning amendment to explain the rationale behind it. A lot of the physical details about why this is needed and what the benefits are, and a lot of that background's in the document, in the amendment document already. I think it's really just a matter of making it clear that I know that there are people in the community that care about this, so making sure that the people are there to say reflect that in the conversation at the public hearing.
So are the emails read during the meeting? Does the mayor read them, or?
No, I believe his plan, I'm not 100% certain, but he often will read off like people that registered in support or opposition to a particular amendment, but he won't read the content. That being said, each council member gets a copy of it when you send it to that particular council and mayor@fitchburgwi.gov email address. So, I hope that all the alders read through it, but that's why I like in-person testimony or video testimony, because you have the chance to make sure that you're heard.
Okay.
And I will, I'm going to email out, I did put together a blog post to kind of walk through all of these that I will send out to the committee for your reference. And I'm happy to talk to if anyone has questions about this, I can probably find some time tomorrow afternoon or right after this meeting to talk to you about it one-on-one in terms of advocating, but just did want you to make you aware that all those things are on the table. And if you're willing or interested to write or speak, I would encourage you to do so.
Okay. Thank you, Gabrielle.
Thanks so much.
Item 7, staff commissioner updates. Bill and Phil. Solid waste is the first one.
Yep. The solid rates were approved by council at the last meeting at $215 per use, and I think it's $6.35 for the pickup, the brush pickup.
Six.
Is that right? $6.75. Sorry about that. And there was a number. We're also looking into one of the capital projects that we wanted to put in next year was the yard waste camera system. And our IT director had found an online service that would do the same thing that we're looking for and provide us the data for, we would be renting the camera for $2,500 rather than purchasing one for $15,000 to do the same thing. So basically what it'll do is it'll read the license plates and we can run those plates to see where the people that are using the drop-off site are coming from and issue citations for those that are not a member of our community. So we're looking to get that up and running in the month of December, and then January 1 we'll be watching those plates and seeing where the people are coming from.
Bill, do you know how many of the citations are actually forgiven?
I do not.
Will there be a warning to people pulling up that their license plate's being read?
Yeah, we'll have to get a notice of that. It does say that the area is under video surveillance, so I don't know if that covers it or not.
I haven't listened to the court for quite a while. I'll say a couple of years. But when I last listened to it, anybody that got a citation from the drop-off site related to the drop-off site, it was all forgiven. So I'm not sure that's going to pay for your camera.
Who does the forgiving, Diane?
The judge?
Oh. Is it Dane County?
Oh, no, it's the city.
City.
All right, I'll have to look into that. We haven't had too many phone calls this year about yard waste, but we had a discussion with Pelletary, and they would really like to get rid of the plastic bags that people are using because they have to tear them open, and it's difficult to get all the debris out of it. They said, and then they have to get rid of the plastic bags too. So we do have that on our website, you know, from most ecological to least, you know, and it does show a plastic bag on there. So people are using it, but Pelletary is saying that it is kind of an issue. It slows them down, and plastic bags blow around and things like that when they have to dispose of them.
Mm-hmm.
So what are they suggesting? Are they not going to pick up on plastic bags? I mean, are they suggesting modifying the contract?
They would like to pick up paper bags or the compostable, whatever, you know, you can compost bags. Yeah, they would rather have those because they can just take them right to the compost site, and then they can be regenerated. So
Is there
just a thought, if we wanted to put that out there, that we won't accept plastic bags, that they have to use one of the other three areas that we have.
Has there been discussion in the past about piles on the lawns that they then move, you know, to the street in, I think, similar to what Madison does right now?
No, we don't have the equipment to do that. Pelletier doesn't under their contract. So it has to be, some kind of a bag or pickup that they would have to do.
As a someone who lives in a heavy leaf neighborhood, after having moved from Madison, I can fully understand both sides of this because my neighbor across the street put out 130 bags worth of leaves last year, and I put out something similar. And so the idea that all those have to be bagged just to get them taken away at some point, if people want it done, they're just going to keep doing it. And so I think we're going to get into a crux with some of these neighborhoods if we remove plastic bags from being in contention. Not that I want them to be used, I just think it really pins people in a bad place if we don't offer like a mass removal option that could be moving it into the street or something like that.
Terry said one of those vacuum trucks was too expensive, and I mean they've grown a lot since we talked to them about this, and maybe other communities have made it more feasible for them to invest in a vacuum bag. But when I lived in Madison and they came along and pushed all the leaves in the street was a mess after they got done. There were more leaves blowing around than ever before. So I would not want to go to what Madison is doing. But I wonder if there's a way that we can encourage people to use the paper bags that you buy at, a hardware store or grocery store instead of plastic bags. Do you know what the cost difference is, Josh?
Significant. I mean, that's the other disadvantage to this is that, I will say, Diane, that was not my experience when I lived in Madison. They had a number of, guys with blowers and I felt like they were doing a pretty diligent job on it. I felt like it made it more amenable for neighbors to get the stuff out there on their own, and you weren't dealing with private services, dropping off at the drop-off site, which I have a feeling happens a lot right now in Fitchburg. And it's just, the bulk of it, right? Those are big, bulky bags. They're not super amenable to every homeowner being able to do that kind of on their own. And they're not inexpensive, they're not super expensive, but they're not cheap, certainly.
Well, the city of Fitchburg does offer the reusable bags. And I believe, I don't remember if it's 1 or 2 for free. And then I think to purchase additional ones, it's like $2 or something. And I know that a lot of people probably are not aware that they can pick those up at the city, because we were bagging some of our leaves this weekend, and our neighbor came over and said, "Oh, those are great bags. Where did you get them?" And so I think there's a real opportunity for us to do a better job of educating the citizens about these bags if the city still has them available.
Yeah, I never heard about that program. Huh.
Does the city still have that program, Bill?
Yes, we do. The first one's free per year, and then it's $2 per bag afterwards.
I was thinking of writing an article about this, actually.
Yeah, I think that would be good. Where do you get the bags at? Where do you pick them up at?
City Hall.
City Hall front counter.
Okay.
Yeah, they're huge bags, and I think we have 4 of them, plus we have like a barrel too, but yeah, they're great bags.
They're made out of tarp material with the drawstring. I've got a dozen of them. They are great, and I would recommend advertising those. Yeah, in one of our write-ups.
Do you only use those in the fall, or do you use those in the spring?
Both.
Really? So maybe next spring you can write an article.
That's what I was thinking.
Good job.
Anything else on solid waste?
Yep.
Nope, nothing there. Stormwater update. We've got several proposals out there for qualifications on some stormwater projects, Seminole Glen stormwater area, the park area, TMDL, the total maximum daily load study that we have. There's a couple more out there. Claudia got them all out there before she left. So it's just up to me to make sure they get opened up and ready to go for next year. So that was pretty nice of her to be able to do that for me. Mm-hmm. And we still are in the running for the congressional, Congressional Directed Spending Grant, or the program that they have there. We applied for a grant of about $850,000 for to complete studies of like Goose Lake, Lake Barney. working with municipalities that are multi-jurisdictional for those stormwater issues. So hopefully, if that goes through, we'll have some funding for that to get those studies completed and implemented for construction for the design of it. The total maximum daily load grant that Claudia had written, we were notified that we're 99% awarded. They won't actually make the announcement until late November, early December, but that grant was, I think, $65,000 or $55,000 to offset the cost of that project that we have going forward. And yeah, things are busy here in stormwater land.
Great. Thanks, Bill. Okay.
Bill, I just want to comment that Claudia did a really nice job getting things ready for RCC, also getting things done in advance, knowing that she'd be absent.
Yeah, yes, she did. Okay, sustainability, Phil.
All right, sustainability. October 23rd, the MAM swap and clean sweep hazardous waste drop-off event was held in Fitchburg over near Oak Bank and the West Fire Station in that parking lot kind of behind Funk's Pub. Got some numbers from Crystal Campbell with the county. She said we got 216 pre-registrations. Only 32 of them were no-shows. And then an additional, it looks like 11 credit card and 50 cash transactions the day of. So adding those 61 to the total, doing this math in my head right now, it looks like about 245 participants in that hazardous waste drop-off event, which is it's a great total for people getting these things out of their homes and disposing of them properly.
Bill, do you know how many people they turned away?
I don't know how many people they turned away. I didn't get numbers on that.
It would be interesting to know, because maybe we should do this again next year.
Possibly. I know it sounds like their municipalities are often chomping at the bit to help host these things. It was a fair bit of logistical work on my part to work with them and get this hosted in Fitchburg. So it was really nice to be able to do this, but also I'll look forward to a few months without those meetings and emails. But yeah, it was a fantastic event. Got a couple of surveys, some that people filled out when they were doing the pre-registration, some that were filled out day of. And it looks like around half of the respondents said that they learned about this event from either social media or printed newspaper, with our website coming in third. But yeah, just a kind of about what you would expect. People found out about it either in the paper or Facebook, Nextdoor, I think they used to help advertise this, things like that. The day of survey, 42 of the 61 respondents lived in a zip code that includes Fitchburg, and there's also overlap with Madison and Oregon and Verona, but a lot of local participants in this event as well. So it's just it was nice to see that local participation in this and bring this closer to people than the physical clean sweep drop off is at a convenient weekend time. Fitchburg staff is meeting this week with B-Cycle representatives Wednesday to discuss, we're talking about possible program expansion into Fitchburg. So B-Cycle has a really solid footprint established already in Madison. I believe they have an agreement now to place 1 or 2 B-Cycle docks in Monona, and a couple people who work with B-Cycle live in Fitchburg, and we've been talking with them and with the bike committee for a little while now about a possible partnership between Fitchburg, B-Cycle, and some local Fitchburg companies that are interested in expanding that bike share program closer to their customers and their employees. So we're going to have a discussion about that Wednesday and talk about what sort of their project proposal is and how that could work out for them and for us. As I mentioned already, I'll reach out to Resource Solutions and Pelletieri soon regarding spring and fall dates next year. Usually for the spring date, we look to have the shred and recycling event in April because that aligns with Earth Month. We'll want to avoid the weekend of Easter, which is April 16 and 17. we'll want to avoid the Crazy Legs run that is hosted downtown, and I believe that's usually the last Saturday in April, so that would be April 30. So if we're going to do this on a Saturday again, and I've got to figure out what days are available with those two, with both of those vendors, but we'd be looking at likely either April 2, April 9, or April 23. I would think we'd probably prefer the 23rd, all else being equal, just because it's more
Closer to
likely
Earth
that the
Day.
weather's a little nicer.
It's closer to Earth Day.
It's also closer to Earth Day, right? Yeah, I think
Well,
that's
Also,
probably the day after Arbor Day.
we try to do the waterway cleanup around the 9th.
Right. Okay.
So
Yep.
yeah, we would prefer the 23rd, I think.
So yeah, we'll see what dates they give us as available, and then I'll probably send a note out to all of you to let you know what we'll be looking at, since we don't have a meeting in December to talk about it. But yeah, just kind of get a sense of what weekends they have available next year. I know that this year we scheduled this November event all the way back in February.
Yeah.
Because they only had 2 or 3 dates available for the whole rest of the year. I'm hoping that there were a lot of backlogged events that they're not going to be quite so booked already for next year, but we'll just find out when I get in touch with them.
For the fall event, Phil, we try to
Mhm.
avoid a home football Saturday.
Right. Yep.
Okay.
And I'll see. I don't know do you have any idea if the UW football schedule's out for next year yet? I'm not sure if that would have been released,
I
but
haven't
I'll
seen
it.
take
It
a
is.
look at it. Okay. But yeah, I'll keep that in mind for sure.
It'd be nice if it wasn't quite so cold.
Yeah. Well, considering that it was in November, I was pretty pleased with how the weather turned out.
It did
Yeah.
warm up.
Well, maybe September, or October, ideally.
Mm-hmm. Yep,
All
we'll
right, well,
see.
thank-
Yep. I've got a couple more things here I didn't
Oh, okay.
include in the packet there. So I have had ongoing meetings. I think I've mentioned this already with Sustainability Leaders Collaborative. It's kind of an ad hoc group of Dane County sustainability leads for different municipalities that are meeting to share ideas, just kind of picking up ideas from my peers in the county and sharing some of our successes with them. So that's one place where I've been getting some ideas for some of these potential avenues for ARPA funding spending. So really getting a lot of use out of that and hoping to bring more ideas back to the city from what some of our neighbors are doing in future months. I couldn't announce this in October because I wasn't at the meeting, but on October, I guess prior to it, but the mayor issued a proclamation declaring October 5 as Energy Efficiency Day in Fitchburg, which was really exciting. This is for 6 or 7 years, I think now. There's been a national effort to proclaim the first Wednesday in October every year as National Energy Efficiency Day. I know Madison and Dane County have both issued proclamations in the past. I think 1 or 2 of our other neighbors have, but this is the first time that Fitchburg has gotten on board. And in addition to it just being in general a great initiative to pursue and to advertise and promote, it aligns strongly with our clean energy resolution goals. There's specific language about energy reduction, energy efficiency. So I thought it was really important to have this proclamation issued. I'll hope to do the same in future years. Maybe this one I'll get framed and put up somewhere publicly to display on our walls or something. But that was really nice to finally get Fitchburg officially publicly aligned with that. And I don't think this was mentioned yet this evening. I believe we are still looking for one final RCC member. We have an opening on the commission right now. I'm not sure if my next Green e-newsletter is going to be at the end of this month or the start of December, but I'll make sure to include something in there if we haven't found a member yet. But it would be, I think it'd be really nice if we have our open spot filled coming into our January meeting, and we'll just see what we can do about that.
To my knowledge, there are 2 applicants.
Awesome.
The mayor hasn't made a final decision, but obviously there's some time now. So if other people want to apply, definitely encourage people to do so.
Great.
I think,
Thanks, Gabrielle.
I think including that in your green e-blast would be wonderful, Phil, because the people that are reading that are already environmentally minded. So I think that would be great.
Yep.
Right.
When I write it, I'll make sure to only include it if the position's still open.
All right, thanks, Phil and Bill, for the updates on the staff and commission. Let's see here, item 7D, activities being conducted or monitored by commissioners. I don't have anything extra to talk about. Does anybody else or any concerns? Okay. With that said, it's what, 9:04, so a little bit over schedule.
Not bad.
No, not too bad at all. So I'd like to.
Good job, Diane
Thanks.
and Ron.
Yeah. Like to adjourn the meeting at 9:04.
I think you have to take a motion and a vote.
Yep, take a motion to adjourn the meeting.
No, you don't need to do that. We were told you just adjourn.
Oh, that's not how I do it in all my other commissions. That's what my understanding is, that you're supposed to adjourn, move adjournment and vote on it.
Yeah, we've never done that in a RCC meeting.
No, it came from
Yeah.
City Hall that wasn't, there was somebody that presented to the council and they said, you don't need to do that for adjournment, you just adjourn.
All right, well, we'll take that and I'll double
Okay.
check. Yeah. Clarify that.
Well, our next meeting is Monday, January 10th. So you got some time off. So hope everyone has a good holiday, Thanksgiving period, and look forward to getting together back in January, and we'll have a lot to discuss.
Maybe we can get together in person. I didn't even recognize Josh. He had a hat on and a mask on. I didn't know who was behind there.
Yeah. Well, thank you, everyone. And again, thank you for all those who helped out last Saturday with the recycling event. It was a good event.
Good event.
Yep.
Absolutely.
Good night,
All right.
everyone.
Good night.
Good night.
Thanks.
Happy
Bye.
New Year.
Bye.